Welcome to this explainer. We're diving straight into something wild today. Lately, we've been seeing ransomware demands completely blow past the $50 million mark for a single breach, literally paralyzing global supply chains, financial institutions, and even hospitals. And the cyber cartels pulling the strings, they operate with this terrifying level of confidence. They demand their payouts in cryptocurrency, arrogantly assuming the digital realm just completely hides their tracks. Well, today, we are going to decode the high-stakes, fast-paced digital detective work that global law enforcement uses to track those exact payouts. We're going to see how they turn the hunters into the hunted, breaking down exactly how investigators flip the script on these cyber criminals. Let's get right into it. Okay, let's dive into this main question. Are ransomware payments truly untraceable? Now, for years, this was the absolute prevailing myth. Extortionists operated with supreme arrogance, banking on these outdated assumptions that once a ransom was paid out in crypto, boom, it vanished into an untouchable black hole. But modern law enforcement teams, they have completely weaponized that arrogance. As you'll see, they're proving that the so-called digital getaway car is way more trackable than these syndicates ever anticipated. See, there's this massive misconception out there that cryptocurrency operates as some foolproof black box of anonymity. Criminal gangs totally bank on this. They choose crypto because they want the speed and the global reach without traditional banking approval slowing them down. They're willing to accept what they think is a minor tracing risk for the reward of fast, borderless cash. But the reality they often overlook, usually until it's way too late, is that a blockchain is a permanent public ledger. Every single transaction stays visible forever. A wallet might not demand a passport when you create it, sure, but the exact moment a criminal receives their illicit payday, they cement a permanent digital footprint, and that footprint never fades. So here's our procedural roadmap for today's explainer. First, we'll bust the myth of anonymity. Then, follow the digital money through a live investigation. After that, we'll navigate the cat and mouse game of blockchain obfuscation, build the real-world legal case, detail the immediate victim protocol, and finally, look at the AI-driven future of cyber enforcement.
All right, jump in right into Section 1, the myth of anonymity. Pseudonymous, not anonymous.
Because cryptocurrency is pseudonymous, meaning hidden behind an alias, not inherently anonymous, the underlying architecture actually acts as a massive investigative weapon, and this brilliantly illustrates how law enforcement gains the upper hand here. Think about it. They don't need some complex zero-day exploit to hack into a cartel's server farm. No, they simply use the criminal's own financial system against them. By leveraging the permanent public ledger, investigators can trace every single hop of the stolen funds entirely out in the open. The blockchain is literally doing the heavy lifting for them. Moving along to Section 2. Following the digital money. The investigation playbook. So the hunt kicks off the exact second a panicked victim shares the ransom note and the attacker's initial wallet address. That sets the tripwire. From there, the investigation accelerates into this rigorous, highly structured workflow. Using advanced forensic software from firms like Chainalysis or TRM Labs, agencies actually map out the intricate web of transaction hops across the network. They follow the digital breadcrumbs as the funds fracture into smaller amounts, moving super fast through intermediary wallets. Once they have a clear path, the focus shifts to identifying a centralized controlling entity. Getting that identification gives investigators the leverage to legally compel crypto exchanges to hand over real-world data. Ultimately, they match that network activity against physical travel records and social media to build a bulletproof suspect profile. Now, one of the most devastating tools in the investigator's arsenal is something called wallet clustering. Ransomware syndicates operate at scale, right? They rarely just hit one target. They're extorting dozens of victims simultaneously, and inevitably, they cross-contaminate those payments. This is exactly where the algorithmic magic happens. Forensic heuristic models analyze shared inputs, precise timing links, and distinct spending habits to logically group hundreds of seemingly disconnected addresses together. The beauty of this is that one single operational security mistake on a tiny, low-level extortion can unravel a massive syndicate's entire wallet structure. It flags to investigators that a single, overarching entity controls the funds, which drastically narrows the search grid. It's like finding the critical edge piece to a giant puzzle. Which brings us to Section 3, the cat and mouse game, mixers and obfuscation. Of course, cybercriminals aren't stupid. They know the ledger is public, so they actively try to break the forensic trail using services designed to obfuscate the origin of funds, like cryptocurrency mixers or tumblers. But while these tumbling platforms attempt to scramble the connections, they are far from foolproof against modern analytics.
Investigators deploy advanced techniques like tracing peeling chains, where they follow the systematic siphoning of funds over time. They use sophisticated volume analysis and temporal correlation to monitor exactly what goes into an obfuscation service and exactly what comes out and when. By matching up these statistical clues, they routinely bust right through that cryptographic fog to reestablish the connections the criminals thought were permanently severed.
These syndicates also rely on cross-chain bridges to hop between entirely different networks, or they might pivot to privacy coins that utilize stealth addresses and ring signatures. Now, I won't lie, these tactics undeniably introduce friction into the investigation, but here is the ultimate vulnerability that law enforcement aggressively exploits: the fiat off-ramp. A hacker might be sitting on tens of millions of dollars in digital assets, but they're effectively trapped. They cannot buy a luxury mansion, a sports car, or even a cup of coffee without converting that crypto into hard cash. They eventually have to interact with the traditional financial system. And investigators relentlessly target these exact conversion points. Just lying in wait for the critical moment, those funds hit a centralized off-ramp.
All right, Section 4, building the legal case, subpoenas and seizures. Let's move to and see how this builds into physical, real-world consequences. When the forensic tracing finally leads those stolen funds to a regulated exchange, the entire game changes. Agencies leverage international treaties and cooperative agreements to bridge jurisdictions. A cyber unit in Europe, for instance, can issue a mutual legal assistance request or a subpoena to a compliant exchange operating completely across the globe. By compelling that exchange to hand over account details, IP logs, and government-issued identity documents, suddenly that abstract, pseudonymous network activity is instantly and permanently anchored to a real-world name, a face, and a physical address. Gotcha. And the results of this synchronized legal and technical strike, they can be absolutely staggering. Consider the massive 2021 Colonial Pipeline attack. That breach completely paralyzed fuel distribution across the eastern United States. The extortionists walked away with a huge 75 Bitcoin payout, likely popping champagne, celebrating what they thought was a flawless, untouchable heist. But they drastically underestimated the speed of this forensic partnership. In a shocking turn of events, the FBI meticulously tracked the ledger hops, traced the funds to a specific server, obtained a warrant, and essentially reached right into the attacker's infrastructure to seize their private keys. They ripped the vast majority of those 75 Bitcoin right back out of the criminals' pockets. It is such a profound narrative climax that proves just how vulnerable these syndicates really are. Which leads us to Section 5, how businesses should respond, the victim's protocol. Now, the actions a victim takes in those frantic, golden hours immediately following a breach, they directly dictate the success of the entire investigation. If an organization is compromised, fast and organized action is the ultimate defense. Crucial evidence like system logs and ransom notes absolutely must be preserved untouched. Immediate engagement with authorities gives investigators the critical window they need to freeze funds before they ever reach an obfuscation service. So the absolute crucial point here is this: blindly paying a ransom without legal and forensic guidance isn't just a technical risk, it can trigger massive federal consequences. Think about this. If those funds inadvertently flow to a syndicate on an OFAC sanctions list, the victimized company could face crushing regulatory penalties and massive fines on top of the operational losses they just suffered. Expert guidance is entirely non-negotiable. And our final section, Section 6, the future, AI and global alignment. We are rapidly moving from an era of reactive tracing to proactive interception. With the integration of AI predictive analytics, models are beginning to analyze vast data sets of past behaviors to actually flag new malicious infrastructure and suspicious wallet activity before a breach even occurs. It's a total game changer. But this arms race is far from over. If AI can eventually predict and freeze a ransom wallet before the transaction even confirms, will ransomware become extinct, or will the cyber cartels simply build their own advanced AI to counter our defenses? It's a chilling frontier to consider. Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer.